Well, welcome to Viking Press Pass, presented by New Bellity. I'm Matthew Nickel, voice of Augustana football, and joining me today is a man that needs a little introduction, Cain Johnson, tackle here for the Vikings. So, Cain, thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, Cain, for those watching, may not know who you are. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Like I said, my name is Cain Johnson from Galesburg, Illinois. Technically a fifth year. Played D-line the first 2 years here, switched over to O-line the past three, major sociology, anthropology. And yeah.
So fifth year. So, why did you choose to come back for a fifth year?
One thing was that, back in high school, my high school team wasn't very good. We didn't make playoffs. Last year got a bit of taste of that, going to the Isthmus Bowl. And I just thought that I really can't close my career out without, getting to that actual postseason. So that was one of the big ones in coming back. Another one is me and our other tackle, we kind of talked to some scouts from the Bears and Vikings over the past spring. So that was also another +2 with coming back, kind of see with what happens with that once the season ends. But yeah, those are the two things really.
Awesome. Well, so going into your fifth year, what does that balance of like football and academics look like for you this fall as a pair, opposed to years past?
So I have a lot more free time. I'm sure Cole has told you a lot more free time to watch film, getting in the weight room, whether it's lifting or doing mobility or, getting with our athletic trainer and doing some rehab with her. Really, it's just opened up, a lot. I'm not really too much, you know, school is very important, but as of right now, with only one class I'm taking, it's not too much of a burden. I'm not thinking about tests, quizzes, essays or anything. So it really just opened up football a lot more with me being able to do that.
So last year, thinking a little bit about some of the accolades, right? You were second team all CCIW the past 2 years. You were third team all region, D3football.com, this past year. So talk to me a little bit about, what does it take to be a lineman in the CCIW specifically?
You really got to be a sponge. You got to absorb. Coach Ragone has really implemented the stuff that I need to be successful. And not only that, but your other 4 linemen, you guys all have to be on the same page. My right guard the past few years, Braden McDonald, he really helped me out, especially with transitioning over to offensive line. So really just having a good core around you, giving you the pointers, and obviously, a good coach with Coach Ragone, helped me out. But really just to be a successful offensive lineman at CCIW, you got to be able to, be a sponge and absorb everything and just kind of, bad plays happen, you got to flush it out, go on to the next one so it doesn't pile up and just keep going, really.
You mentioned Coach Ragone. He was just on the Coach Tools podcast, and he was talking, about this new like sprint-based, practice. I think they took a little bit from maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's really about like prioritizing speed at all positions. So, I thought it was a really interesting podcast to learn a little bit more about how the Vikings have continued to transition, how we practice, because how you practice is how you play. So how has that like sprint-based approach really transitioned to, the offensive line and kind of to your role?
Really just, getting up to the line, getting set, getting out of there. I feel like it's been going really well. Really working, offensive lineman, we're not the fastest probably on the team, but with what we've been doing, we've been making strides and it's been looking really well.
So how has the offensive line for the Vikings, how has that really evolved kind of over your career? It looks, there's some similarities I notice, in today, but I also see a number of differences. But from your perspective, how has it evolved?
Coming in my freshman year, freshman, sophomore year was a bit shaky. A lot of guys growing up, into the position. Junior year comes around, my junior year at least, we had that 3 interior, solid Dan, big Braden McDonald, and Jacob Ullman. But now, So that was more like a traditional, like, we had a lot of power with it, my junior, senior year. Now I feel like this year's and years on, a lot more athletic offensive line. I feel like a lot more athletic. I feel like it's transitioned from kind of like the more like the power, so into like the more athletic guys like Zach Michaels, our right guard right now. He's pretty athletic. Jimmy Z, pretty athletic. Ben Hartman, Zion, pretty athletic. So just really the athleticism.
Well, and I think, especially from an offensive line perspective, over the last 4 years, I mean, there were a lot of snaps and a lot of reps with that offensive line being that core for, a good solid 4 years. And there's a little bit of a new look, right? To the offensive line, just new names.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as the season continues to grow, I mean, a lot of it's just learning a little bit of the new style, being a lot more athletic, um, you know, not so much necessarily just nose to nose and can you push them forward, but it is some of the rotations and some of the pulls and traps and different schemes that they come up with. And but definitely a lot different than being a silver streak down there
No,
in
yeah,
Galesburg for sure.
no,
Um,
definitely.
which were you did you get to play in that new stadium? I'm trying to think when they built
Oh,
that.
so they built that my eighth grade year. So yeah,
Okay.
so my whole all 4 years I was able to play in that stadium.
That's a beautiful facility down
No, it
there.
is.
I,
I'm glad they made it.
I got to call, it was like 2 years ago, I called the Moline Galesburg game. So Chase, that is a DB for us. I mean, he was playing. He actually had to catch that game. So definitely see a few, familiar faces down there. So,
No, yeah.
um, has there been any one person or team that really sticks out that was a tough matchup or any memorable one-on-one matchups as you think about like your career, like who's been some studs you've had to go up against?
No, yeah. Uh, there's really, one guy I go up, I went up against, every day in practice was Chase Tatum. He was definitely a handful for sure. The speed and strength that guy has is unbelievable. And I always tell him, I wouldn't have been in the position if it was for him pushing me every day in practice. But game wise, Dan Gilroy from North Central, my junior year when I first transitioned to offensive line, he was handful, 6'3", 6'4", 280, coming off the edge, bit of a handful. Last year, Justin Blazik,
Mm-hmm.
defensive end, I mean, he went to the next level for a reason, he's pretty good. So,
Yeah, he was. I remember at the Isthmus Bowl that Friday night at the dinner. When both him and Tim Swinney got to come up and talk, and he walked by. I was like, that's a man. He
no,
was
yeah.
built. And there's a reason, right? He got an invite there to the Bengals, but yeah, I think you've been such a solid core anchor, for this line, for the past several years, um, and I think, with the motto of like unfinished business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, this being your fifth year, I mean, what does that motto or theme really kind of mean, to you and maybe to this offensive line this year?
What it means to me, and definitely been harping on it with the offensive line, is unfinished business, getting over that hump and beating Wheaton this year. My junior year, I was kind of close until the end. Last year, it was down to the last second, came within a touchdown. This year, getting over that hump, beating Wheaton, and getting to that postseason. Because I feel like we've had everyone works hard, but this year we've had a lot of guys head down grinding. Grinding, like I'm sure you saw in the opener, like Sean Slanzer, Ethan Ryback. We had glimpses of Zach Michaels, putting people to the ground and everything. So we really just want to get over that hump, beat Wheaton next week, and keep taking it 1 week at a time. But eventually get to that postseason.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I don't think we beat Wheaton since 2006. So, I think we're, it's been building up, right, to this curtain call, I think, of this year. And,
Mhm.
we've got the pieces to put it all together. So, but again, it's got to be, pretty mistake free. And, as I was looking at, like their initial game against Oshkosh. And, Isaac Parrish, he was the second leading tackler in our game last year. He led that, as defensive lineman, senior, 6'1", 254, had, 10 tackles. But what are you expecting from Wheaton coming in? Looking at, their game against Oshkosh, 7 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. So they're going to bring the pressure.
No, yeah, most definitely.
What are you expecting, to be dealing with up front?
I expect them. We had about 250 plus rushing yards on them last year, and we killed them in the counter. So we're kind of just looking for, they're probably going to not want us to run counter against them this year like we did last year. So really, feel like they might load the box a little bit in some of our formations. We'll be able to pick that up. Third and long, though, I see him getting a little funky with it, sending blitzes because, like Coach Ragone says, our resume is out there right now. But this is what this work week and next week will be, is fixing those mistakes so we can have a mistake-free game against Wheaton and eventually get that W at the end.
Last year was the first time in a long time, and I fully agree with it again going into this year, is we looked dominant up front against them. We really controlled the line of scrimmage. That, hats off to you and everyone on that team last year of really just, set your heels in the dirt, man, and let's go. We were the better line up front last year, 100%, and the rushing yards we had against them. And I think about the performance Josh Lim just had. Mikey, DeJoya. There's several that he got tackled that he was looking at 6. So we got some home run hitters, man. And, once we get Ben Ludlam back, it's like you got a trio of backs that's super talented. Oh, and then, by the way, we have probably, collectively one of the best receiving core, that we put out there in a while. No. So It's exciting, man. I'm dragging my wife and our kids up to the game. I said, I'm not missing it this year. I'm not missing it. So into the road. So tell me a little bit about, I read the article that Tom Johnson did in the QC Times, and I thought that was just a great article, on you, by the way. And, you spent some time down in Dallas, over the summer working with Logan Tooley-Tillman, who's, he was formerly, I think, Michigan, and was in the XFL and on the 49ers practice squad. And you saw what the 49ers did this past Monday night. So how'd you get hooked up with that, and tell us just a little bit about your experience with that?
Essentially, he's a really good offensive line coach. He's been through it. So I just kind of been following him on Instagram, just kind of watching his videos and everything. And he's a Peoria native. It's close to Galesburg, and we had some. I hit him up, and we got together. He said, "Come on down." And once I got down there, I'm glad I went down there. I kind of got to learn of, how a pro, like what a pro does during the day, what they got to do, types of drills, and it was really eye opening, and it was really good experience. And not only that side of things, but he also had a couple players that were doing drills and stuff with me. I got to practice with the guy center from Colorado. I saw a tackle from Oklahoma, and then I got to work with another tackle from Jackson State who was All-American. So really just kind of learning what they do too during games, practices, stuff like that. It was a lot of information that I'm glad I got.
How long were you down there?
I was down there about a week.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good little stretch.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you've been able to like pass off and bring back? I know if I'm Zach Michaels, I'm sitting next to you, I'm like, hey, share some of that knowledge. Like, what are some things you've been able to kind of bring back and pass off to the Vikings?
Just with pass setting, some of the techniques with our like high knee gallop, things of those nature. Kind of talked about schematics wise. O-line, the O-line room, especially the top 5, 6, we've been kind of meeting together. We just started recently, we're just kind of going over certain things. I don't want to tell you too much of the secret sauce, but but yeah, No, they definitely Zach. Definitely. I've kind of been having him under my wing since his freshman year, and it's been a pleasure to see him evolve and where he's at. We kind of talked about freshman year. How I was wanting him to start right next to me, and then it came to fruition past week, and hopefully we can keep that going.
So you said, you talked about how he evolved. Like, I mean, how do you feel like you've kind of personally evolved over your, 4 or 5 years here?
I mean, hell, if you would have told me, my freshman year, I'd be this type of caliber offensive tackle, I'd be like, well, I'm playing D tackle right now. I don't know what you're talking about. But no, I mean, it's evolved, tremendously. You know, from my freshman and sophomore year playing D tackle, I feel like it almost helped me because when I transitioned into that offensive line, I kind of have a want to do, whether it's the inside hand down or this or that, or like working half a man. So I don't know. I feel like playing D line at first really helped me with getting in the mind of a D lineman. And then once I transferred over to the offensive line, just having the guys really, come around me, help me, pick me up when, I'm messing up plays or whatever. And, I just kind of kept my head down, flushed it out, go on the next play. And, that's really worked wonders for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. I started, broadcasting 5 years ago back for this team, and just seeing, your growth, obviously your move over to offensive line, it's been tremendous. So I think when we really kind of anchor, it's like it starts with Cain.
Mhm.
And the leadership you bring, and and the snaps you had, and you've played some of the best teams in the country.
Oh, yeah.
You've shown to be successful. So now let's maybe talk a little non-football. So, sociology and anthropology, like, how'd you get interested in that? And then what does that really mean for, life after football, whatever that means?
So essentially, I came here undecided. Actually, into my sophomore year, I was still undecided, but I had to pick a major. My first year advisor at the time, she was a sew-in major, and she had me kind of enrolled in some of the classes. And I really thought it was interesting. Learning about different people, learning how other people live their way of life. So I just picked that up as a major. As of right now, I don't know what I want to do with it, but at the end of the day, it just deals with people, learning about people, learning how to talk with people. And I feel like, with whatever I choose to do in life outside of football, I feel like I'll always be having that human to human interaction. I felt like I couldn't go wrong with that major.
Yeah. It could be applicable across so many different aspects of your life. And um, now I asked Cole this as well, but it's like, who has the best food in the QC? And I know he talked about flips, we talked about Sunday
Oh, yeah.
breakfast, but I think, Jim Dribhaven was another one he
Oh,
mentioned.
yeah.
From your perspective, what's the best food in the QC, or do we need to go to Galesburg, and check something out?
Man, we talking about barbecue and going back to Galesburg, this place called D-Bone Barbecue. My ex-coach, Derek Blackwell, he really knows how to throw it down on the grill. But if we're talking about QC, I'm an offensive lineman, so pretty much anything, I'll like. But steel plow, can't go wrong with them. Can't really go wrong with like a Wingstop either. So
Yeah,
it's just really like Cole said flips, that's a good one too,
I told him we need to do a Iowa Machine Shed.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
haven't been out, that's a good jam out there. So,
No, yeah.
um, as you take a look back at your life, who do you feel like has been maybe one of the most like influential people kind of in your life?
Probably my mother would definitely have to be the most influential. Growing up in a single income household, I watched her have to play two parts, and she did it well. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So I am greatly appreciative of her and look up to her every day because she sets the standard for me.
Sounds like a strong woman, man.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate that. Now I'm looking behind you. Okay, so we got College Dropout. Is that your favorite album, or?
Yeah, it's a really good Kanye West album for sure.
Yeah. Now, and then you got Michael Jordan up there. I mean, that's a classic.
Oh yeah,
You know,
greatness.
yep, back in the day, you got your Galesburg up there. So, so I like it, man. Respect all around for all those.
Thank you, thank you.
Now, are you Bulls fan then, or
Oh
just
yeah, oh
okay?
yeah.
All right, I like it.
Been a little rocky the past few years, but we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, that man, I'm excited, to see us go back up to Wheaton. CCIW conference game right out the gate on the road at Wheaton. We're back to back on the road. Before we come back for homecoming.
Yeah.
Um, Not outside of North Central, that's one of the hardest places to play. So, so looking forward to that. But before we sign off, I mean, any shout outs, you'd like to give, kind of floor is yours.
You know, go Vikes. Just go Vikes.
Well,
Ready
I
for next
appreciate
week.
it. Absolutely, man. Well, we got another week. I mean, they're coming off of, a loss. They're towards the end of the game. So they had 2 weeks to be upset about it as well.
No,
So I
yeah.
think we're going to get their best game here come
Oh
week
yeah.
one. So
Oh
looking
yeah.
forward to it.
We've been upset though the past year. We've been fuming over here, so we're ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll definitely be looking forward, man, to go up there and seeing a Viking win. But on that, appreciate you jumping on here today.
Thank you for having me.